Welcome to this exciting journey through one of the most inspiring stories from the Holy Bible, the story of David. Set around 1020 BC, this tale follows the extraordinary life of a humble shepherd boy who rose to become one of Israel's greatest kings. Through courage, faith, and a heart devoted to God, David's life is a testament to the incredible things that can happen when we trust in a higher purpose. Join us as we explore the remarkable adventures, challenges, and triumphs of David, a man after God's own heart. Once upon a time, around 1020 BC, in the hills of Bethlehem, there lived a young shepherd boy named David. He was the youngest of 8 sons in the family of Jesse. While his brothers were strong soldiers in King Saul's army, David was left to tend to the sheep. Despite his young age and small stature, David had a heart full of courage and faith. David was not only brave but also talented. He was known for his skill with the harp. One day, King Saul, tormented by an evil spirit, called for a musician to soothe his troubled mind. David's beautiful harp music brought peace to Saul, and he found favor in the king's eyes. Meanwhile, a fierce giant named Goliath from the Philistine army challenged the Israelites to send a warrior to fight him. For 40 days, Goliath taunted the Israelites, but no one dared to face him. One day, while delivering food to his brothers at the battlefield, David heard Goliath's challenge and was filled with righteous anger. David, filled with faith in God, volunteered to fight Goliath. Despite King Saul's doubts and the soldiers' mockery, David insisted that God, who saved him from lions and bears while protecting his sheep, would save him from Goliath. King Saul finally agreed and offered his armor to David, but it was too heavy and cumbersome for the young shepherd. David faced Goliath with just his sling and 5 smooth stones. As Goliath mocked him, David proclaimed his faith in God. With a swift and precise throw, David slung a stone that struck Goliath on the forehead, causing the giant to fall to the ground. The Philistines fled in fear as David stood victorious. David's victory over Goliath brought great joy and relief to the Israelites. He was celebrated as a hero and soon became a trusted warrior and later the beloved king of Israel. His faith and bravery became a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations to come. Years later, David became the king of Israel. He ruled with wisdom, justice, and a heart devoted to God. His reign marked a time of prosperity and peace for the nation. David's story reminds us that with faith and courage, even the smallest among us can achieve great things. David's victory over Goliath earned him the love and admiration of the people, but it also brought him into the royal household, where he met Jonathan, King Saul's son. Despite the threat David posed to Jonathan's claim to the throne, the two became best friends, bound by a deep and loyal bond. Jonathan even gave David his royal robe and weapons, signifying their unbreakable friendship. As David's fame grew, King Saul became increasingly jealous and fearful of losing his throne. Despite David's loyalty and service, Saul's jealousy turned to rage, and he plotted to kill David. Jonathan, torn between his father and his friend, warned David of Saul's intentions, helping him to escape. David fled from Saul, living as a fugitive in the wilderness. Despite his hardships, he continued to trust in God and gathered a loyal group of followers. David had opportunities to harm Saul, but chose to spare him, showing mercy and respect for the anointed king. David's integrity and leadership earned him the support of many, and he became a formidable force against the Philistines. Despite being on the run, David continued to protect and serve his people. His reputation grew as a wise and just leader. Tragically, during a fierce battle with the Philistines, both King Saul and Jonathan were killed. David mourned deeply for his best friend Jonathan and for Saul, the king he had once served. David's grief was profound, and he composed a heartfelt lament for them. After the death of Saul, the tribe of Judah anointed David as their king. Eventually, all the tribes of Israel recognized David as their king. David captured Jerusalem and made it his capital, establishing a united kingdom. His reign brought peace and prosperity to Israel. One of David's first acts as king was to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. He danced with all his might before the Lord, wearing a linen ephod, celebrating the presence of God among his people. This joyous event marked a spiritual renewal for Israel. Despite his many virtues, David was not without flaws. One spring, when kings usually go off to war, David stayed in Jerusalem. He saw a beautiful woman named Bathsheba, and driven by desire, he sent for her and committed a grave sin. Bathsheba became pregnant, and to cover up his wrongdoing, David arranged for her husband, Uriah, to be killed in battle. God sent the prophet Nathan to confront David about his sin. Nathan told David a parable of a rich man who took a poor man's only lamb. David, angered by the story, condemned the man, only for Nathan to reveal that the man was David himself. Stricken with guilt, David repented sincerely, and God forgave him, but the consequences of his actions affected his family and kingdom. David's later years were marked by family turmoil. His son Absalom, driven by ambition and anger, led a rebellion against him. David was forced to flee Jerusalem. Despite the betrayal, David ordered his men to deal gently with Absalom, but the rebellion ended tragically with Absalom's death. Despite the trials and tribulations, David's reign left an enduring legacy. He was a man after God's own heart, who, despite his flaws, always sought to serve God. David's Psalms became a source of comfort and inspiration for generations. His lineage continued through his son Solomon, and eventually, from his line came the promised Messiah, Jesus Christ. As David neared the end of his life, he reflected on the journey God had led him through. He gathered his son Solomon and the leaders of Israel, giving them final instructions. David reminded Solomon to follow God's ways, to be strong, and to lead the people with justice and wisdom. Following David's death, Solomon was anointed king of Israel. Solomon asked God for wisdom to lead the people, and God granted him unparalleled wisdom and understanding. Under Solomon's rule, Israel experienced unprecedented peace and prosperity, and he built the magnificent temple in Jerusalem. Solomon fulfilled his father David's dream by building the temple in Jerusalem. The temple became the central place of worship for the Israelites, where they could offer sacrifices and worship God. The dedication of the temple was a grand event, with Solomon praying for God's presence to dwell among his people. David's legacy lived on through the Psalms, songs of praise, lament, and thanksgiving that he composed throughout his life. The Psalms expressed David's deepest emotions and his unwavering faith in God. They became a treasured part of Israel's worship and continue to inspire and comfort people today. David's lineage was significant in the history of Israel and the fulfillment of God's promises. From David's line came the Messiah, Jesus Christ, who would bring salvation to all people. The promise made to David that his throne would be established forever was fulfilled through Jesus, who reigns as the eternal King. David's life story is a testament to the power of faith, repentance, and God's grace. His journey from shepherd boy to king, his victories and failures, and his enduring faith in God left an eternal legacy. David's story reminds us that God can use anyone, regardless of their background, to fulfill his purposes and bring about his kingdom. David's story teaches us that no matter our beginnings or the challenges we face, faith in God can lead us to fulfill our divine potential. His life encourages us to trust in God's plan, to face our giants with courage, and to seek God's forgiveness when we fall short. David's heartfelt relationship with God, expressed through prayer and worship, reminds us that God values a sincere and repentant heart. As believers, we can draw strength from David's example, knowing that God can use anyone to accomplish great things for his kingdom. God bless you, and thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. Stay blessed.